Hello there and welcome to this webinar from Hampshire Scouts on the Young Leader Scheme, a brief overview. Now this could be useful for our young leaders themselves, their parents, or for section leaders who are running the scheme. It gives you the basics of what's involved. So during this session, we're going to have a look at understanding who can be an Explorer Scout young leader and understand who can help as a young leader with their DV and girl guiding. We'll look at the best practice and guidelines when working with young leaders to help you understand how the Young Leader Scheme works, including the training and awards available for them, describe how you can support young leaders to get the most out of their placement, and to know what additional support is available to you and young leaders. To start up, let's focus on who can actually be a young leader ourselves. They don't have to be Bear Grylls to begin with, but they need to have leadership in them. So first things first, in a nutshell, what is the scheme? Young leaders are young people of Explorer Scout age, which is 14 to 18, who can lead the younger sections. They're supported by the leaders of that section and by leaders in each district who look after all young leaders. They work towards an award, complete training and challenges as they go. Now there's two main types of young leader. The first type is an Explorer Scout young leader in the full. Explorer Scouts can become a young leader in the Beaver, Cub or Scout section themselves. They're members of the Young Leader Explorer unit and can access the wider Explorer Scout program, including doing the DV, the Chief Scouts Award and the Queen Scout Award. The minimum age to join this is the same as that of wider Explorer Scouts, 13.5. And because they're a member of an Explorers, they're covered by the Scouts' personal accident and public liability insurance, which is covered by the HQ membership fee. Now, the second type is a little less well known as defined, and that's those who are doing it for DV or girl guiding. Now, they can be young leaders in Beavers, Cubs or Scout section for the length of the volunteering section of their award only. If they wish to continue after that, they need to become an Explorer Scout young leader that we've already discussed. They're not members of the Scouts and so can't take part in the wider Explorer Scout program. They can take part in camps with the section they help. Now, the minimum age for being a DV or girl guiding young leader is 14. They are covered by the Scout Association Public Liability Insurance, but personal accident insurance is covered by the DV or girl guiding because they're a member of those particular units. So now I've done a brief introduction, let's start to look at the scheme itself and what that looks like day to day. So first things first, we have 11 training modules, including first aid. Now, these are like the adult leader modules that our adult volunteers will be very familiar with, but they are lettered instead of numbers. So we have modules A to K. There's also then 4 missions to put that learning into practice. Finishing module A is awarded with the Young Leader's badge, which is worn on the right sleeve of their uniform, and the Young Leader woggle. Now, for each mission completed, the young leader then gets a mission leaf that is added around the outside. Once they've got all 4, they then get the full set completed, as we can see there. Now, when all the missions and all the modules are complete, the young leader gets the Young Leader belt buckle and certificate to recognise they have completed the entire scheme. And even more, a lot of our young leaders in Hampshire become adult leaders when they reach 18. And so on their adult uniform, they can get an adult recognition badge that goes on their right chest that is available for young leaders who complete the scheme and become an adult volunteer. Let's have a look at some of the training modules and what they cover. Now, a lot of these are linked to the adult leader modules as well. So if any of our young people go on to become adult leaders, then they can use some of the skills they've learnt as prior learning. So the first one we've mentioned already is module A, and that is prepare for takeoff. It covers the essentials and expectations, including the purpose and method of scouting, safeguarding, safety, and the role of a young leader. This is the only mandatory module and needs to be completed within 3 months of starting. Module B is taking the lead and looks at leadership styles, when to use them, and the role of the leader, and what skills we'd like to see leaders have. Module C, that's the way to do it, looks at different ways of teaching skills to younger members. Our next one is Module D, which looks at understanding behaviour, including positive behaviour, dealing with difficult situations and recognising the triggers of challenging behaviour. Module E is Game On, and that looks at the importance of games as a programme tool, some different types of games and how to run them with their section. Module F looks at making scouting accessible and inclusive, thinking back to some of the things in our Skills for Life plan. It identifies the needs of members of the section and how to make adjustments to the programme to take additional needs into account. We also explore some of the big additional needs that we might need to consider. Module G and H go hand in hand. Module G looks at what a high quality programme is, and Module H looks at how to plan one. So they look at the planning a balanced programme, including the badges and awards available, as well as planning a section meeting and a longer term programme. Module I is what do they say, and that looks at how to communicate effectively with your section and run youth forums. All of our U-shaped works fall into this module very nicely. Module J is communicate it, and this looks at wider communication skills, including how to promote the skills learned as a young leader in the future, such as in job interviews or on UCAS forms. The final one is Module K, First Aid, completing the Scout First Response course at a minimum and is equivalent to Emergency Aid Stage 4. So the content that our adult volunteers and our young leaders are taught as first aid is very similar from these. In Hampshire, we tend to teach Module K First Aid as some e-learning to begin with, followed by normally an in-person session afterwards, of course, pending on what we are able to do with coronavirus. So let's have a look at some of the missions. The first mission is Mission 1, and that is to run a game. They should plan and run a minimum of 3 games with the section they're volunteering with, and at least 1 should take place indoors and 1 outdoors. They can be varied using at least different types of leadership style and different types of games. These can include virtual games when we are doing Scouts virtually. We've shared on this screen some other ideas that people from around the country have come up with. We've got someone coming about, they've heard from word of mouth about non-stop cricket, something they played at school, so they run that at their next session. We've got someone who has a young leader who's a friend in another group. They had a game called Ladders. They taught it at Explorers, then ran it for Cubs. Or what about this one? Someone running a game of bench ball for the Scouts that they're volunteering with. They played it themselves when they were young. They now want you to have a go at it. Mission 2 is about running an activity that isn't a game. It's as simple as that. So the activities involved could involve planning it and organising it, delivery and gathering any equipment or material that's needed. Again, this also works for online virtual scouting. There are some ideas there on the screen, and let's see what people have done into that around the country. We've had people making a fire and cooking s'mores with their beavers as an end of term activity. We've got some scouts deciding they want to go on a hike, but said they were just bored of just walking, so they made a instant hike with first aid base. And we had some Cubs here who wanted to do the scientist badge to blow some things up. They couldn't get on the handles of explosives, but they borrowed some bicycle pumps and launched some water rockets instead. The third one very much links into U-shape and our particular aim there, and that's to take the section's ideas to a programme planning meeting. They should ask the young people in the section for their ideas on what they want to do, capture those ideas, see how they can be incorporated into the programme, and attend and contribute to a meeting to help plan that programme. So lots of U-shaped skills and activities can come into play here. Some other ones that people around the country have done. Someone's planned and ran a log chew at Beavers, setting a question for each of the lodges, making notes. We've got someone asking their patrol leaders if they could do a summer camp. They're in regular contact with the patrol leaders and use their ideas to plan a structure for the camp. Or what about this Cub one? I was really pleased when I was asked to represent my pack at the district Cub leaders meeting, and they ran a game of snowballs to prepare for this, with the Cubs writing down what they want to do and throwing them around the room. The fourth module mission is delivery, and that's to take responsibility for organising and running a part of the wider section programme. This mission should include planning and organising a selection of activities on a theme, delivering those activities and evaluating and reviewing them with the section. So examples of this could be planning a linking event from a younger to an older section, or running a full challenge award, or helping to run a camp, or exploring something over a particular topic, or developing a skill over some sessions. Some ideas from the other young leaders have had a go at include things like planning a linking evening from Cubs to come up to the Scouts, inviting the Cub pack, setting the patrol leaders the task of running a game and working towards their team leader challenge at the same time. Or what about at the programme planning meeting, asking if they could lead a whole badge, as it was the summer, the RKA suggested they lead the Adventure Challenge badge. Or what about this one, for the Jamboree experience, they were able to lead some join-in Jamboree activities. When I told my Beaver leader this, I asked if I could run the whole of an international activity badge over a few evenings. So some good ideas there for something that's a little bit wider and broader than perhaps what we've seen for Mission 2. Now, I've mentioned a little bit about some top awards already, but let's look at how these link into the full top awards as well, because there are lots of links and doing Young Leader Scheme can definitely fit in. So first, we've got actually the DofE Chief Scout Award, Queen Scout Award. All of them have a volunteering section, and so young leaders can use the time for this towards the volunteering section of these awards. They would need to complete Module A for the first level of the award, and plus some additional training for missions for each additional level. So let's say they started as a young leader in doing DofE Bronze, for example. Then if they were to carry on doing it for the DofE Silver, then we'd expect to see them doing some extra training at Silver level compared to just maybe the Module A they did for Bronze. Bronze DofE and Chief Scouts Award Platinum will be for 3 or 6 months. Silver DofE or the Chief Scouts Diamond Award will be for 6 or 12 months volunteering, and Gold DofE or the Queen Scout Award will be for either 12 or 18 months. Now, it can also work into the Chief Scout Award and the Queen Scout Award International Community and Values list of ideas, because young leaders can run evenings on international theme towards the international requirements. They can run evenings on the Promise, exploring faith, and the faith activity badges for the values requirements. And they can help the section get in a community impact or environmental conservation badge, which can help towards the community requirements. So they can work towards the ICV activities in the section as well. Okay, now time to have a look at some top tips for helping support our young leaders if you are an adult volunteer. Because when we get in there, we know we want to do the best for them. Let's see how we can do that and some tips for doing it. Okay, so straight out of the gate, we need to make sure we're welcoming them. Trying to meet with the young leaders before they start is really helpful, and introduce them to the other leaders and young people in the section. This is just as valid if we are doing it online. And then get to know them. Have they been in Scouts before? If so, how long? And have they been through the section they're helping with? Maybe they joined at Cubs and they're volunteering with Beavers, for example. Why do they want to be a young leader? Do they have any experience of working with young people or leading activities, something they can already work on and lean into to help them get started? Think about what their hobbies and interests are, because they might share them. They might be really good assets to share with your young people. And are they working towards their other top awards? Are they just starting to volunteer, or do they not even know about things like DofE yet? Okay, some other ones, of course. Now we know a little bit more about them. We want to encourage them to get stuck in. They're not just there to make the juice or the tea any more than any other leader. So make sure you keep them in the loop so they have time to prepare and so they know what's happening. They could, with your advice and support, of course, they could help run games and eventually activities and badges within the section. They might help you open and close the meeting through any ceremonies that's involved. They might plan and run a youth forum to support the program planning, especially linking into their missions, Mission 3. They could help with websites or social media to help grow your section. That might be something they already know quite a bit about. They could run sessions on topics that interest them. If they cycle everywhere, then they could help with the cyclist badge. Maybe they could talk to the young people about their experiences themselves. And finally, they could attend residential trips and camps, or as an extra pair of hands, or seeing it a different way that you may not have thought about. The big one, of course, is that to help them complete their missions and top awards. So as you're going through and spending time with them, talk to them about their training and their missions. Maybe invite them along to program planning meetings, support them, remind them of the things they need to do. They might have forgotten about it. Missions can be signed off by the section leader in consultation with the Explorer Scout leader for young leaders. So do ask what the arrangements are in your district. We'll also mention, as of course of their age, be mindful of exams. Think about a flexible approach during exam season, which normally around sort of April, but also depending on other times as well into the summer. Depends on when they are. Depending on their age will depend on where in the summer season they normally fall. They might be able to come along when they can around exams, but keep in touch about what's going on each week. And if they say they can't make it, yeah, that's fine. It's part of their lives. And when they get to 18, think about what's next. Talk about roles they can undertake. Maybe they become a sectional assistant or an assistant leader even. They can start the DBS before their 18th birthday. And this is a conversation you can have well in advance. Now, if you're going to talk about becoming an adult leader, then discuss the training requirements for the role. Remember, an acronym we use for training is LOVE. Learning optional, validation essential. The training they've done as a young leader can be used with the adult training scheme, and a lot of the knowledge is, if not similar, then the same. Plus, they will have gained loads of experience when they've been a young leader on the job. Don't forget, you can also award the adult recognition badge if they completed the scheme to go on their adult uniform. And the big thing, of course, is ask if you need support. Talk to your group scout leader, the Explorer Scout leader for young leaders, or ACC Top Awards, which is Mike Baxter in Hampshire. You can email him at young.leaders@hampshirescouts.org.uk. He'll also be able to help you if you don't know who your Explorer Scout leader for young leaders is in your district. Finally, before we clock off, we're going to have a look at some frequently asked questions that for you, our volunteers, might need answering. So, first one is about safety and safeguarding. Safety and safeguarding awareness, because all our young leaders should be given the orange card when they start, and Module A must be completed within 3 months of starting. I've mentioned that already, but it is so important. The orange card can be found on the Scout shop online for absolutely nothing, so you can include it with your next orders and have some extra around. Also, in-touch arrangements and awareness of medical issues or additional needs should be in place for all young leaders. Just as if you're doing anything with a Beaver Scout, Cub Scout, for example, and you knew, say, one of them had an allergy to plasters or penicillin, for example, the same arrangements should be in place with your young leaders, especially with next of kin and what to do in emergency. So just bear that in mind. Let's talk about sleeping accommodation briefly. So when we are on nights away again, young leaders should ideally have their own sleeping accommodation. They should not have to share with adults, and they should not have to share with young people within the section. That's just not fair. Okay, let's have a look at some young leaders in the leader team. Let's think about ratios, because this always comes up as a question. Do my young leaders count in the ratio? No, they do not. Young leaders do not count in the ratio of adults to young people, but they don't need to be included in the ratio themselves. So if, for example, as a beaver leader that I am, if I've got a 1:6 ratio, young adults to beavers, then I don't need to consider I can't count my young leader as an adult in that figure, but I don't have to consider them as part of my 1:6 either. They are separate and additional to the resource. Let's think about the number of young leaders in the section briefly. It's recommended that there are no more than 3 young leaders in a section to allow them all sufficient time, space to develop and complete their missions. It of course depends on the number of young people and adults helping at your section, and it may be possible for young leaders to share a role, so one attending one week, one attending the next, and so on. Okay, think about administration. Of course, especially around this time of year with census, let's think about membership fees for young leaders. If the young leader also attends an Explorer unit, it's recommended that the unit that they attend pays their membership fee from their subscriptions. They will pay subs to go to the Explorer unit, so the capitation and membership fee comes out of there. But if they're only an Explorer Scout young leader, then normally it's the Scout group should include them on their census and pay their membership fee. After all, adult volunteers shouldn't have to pay their membership fee, so why should our young leaders at the same time? We'll also mention here a placement agreement, of which template is available, which can help clarify responsibility when placing a young leader. It helps work out who's responsible for what. The leader, Group Scout leader, Explorer Scout leaders for young leader, for example. Okay, think about identity as well. The uniform. Explorer Scout young leaders can wear the Explorer Scout uniform, often with their group neckerchief, or they can wear their Explorer necker. There was also for a time a Hampshire Scouts necker for Hampshire Explorers, which was orange and black. You might see that around from time to time, but that is being phased out. Also, DV young leaders do not need to wear uniform at all. Girl Guiding young leaders can wear their guide's uniform if they wish, but as neither DV young leaders or Girl Guiding young leaders are members of the Scout Association, they shouldn't be wearing Scout uniform for that one. Now, this always comes up as well about helping with a young leader's old Scout troop. Can a young leader, when they've finished as being Scouts, automatically go back into being young leaders with their Scout troop? So we suggest having a gap. The troop needs to adapt to the new role of the young leader, not just have their friend back. So ideally there should be at least a 6-month gap between leaving the troop and returning as a young leader. Doesn't mean they can't be a young leader. They could help with another section. That could be, if they were dead set on Scouts, for example, that could be another Scout section at a different group, or it could be a younger section until they move around later on. But if they go on from one to the other, then they won't be seen as a leader. They'll just be seen as a peer by their friends. Okay, so some support for you. Most districts will have an Explorer Scout leader for young leaders who can provide advice and support on young leaders and how to help. Also, you might have a district Explorer Scout commissioner in your district who can advise on that as well. Finally, at county level, we've got the Assistant County Commissioner for Top Awards, who, as I've mentioned, is Mike Baxter, and he can provide advice and support at young leaders at hampshirescouts.org.uk. young.leaders@hampshirescouts.org.uk. Okay, thank you very much for joining us this evening. If you do have any questions on what you've heard or any question on the Young Leaders Scheme at all, then of course that email address is still there, young.leaders@hampshirescouts.org.uk. Thank you very much for attending this crash course, and see you out there.